So I was thinking about maybe trying something a little different, man. Maybe spicing up the intro a little bit.
Hit it.
The band! Do you see the light? The band! Do you see the light? What light? Have you seen the light? Yes! Yes! Jesus H. Goddamn Christ! I have seen the light!
What's up, fuckers? This is video section. And if you don't like it, you can suck our dicks. Is that too strong? I don't know, man. I just got a new haircut and I'm feeling myself, man. I think I took it a little bit too far.
Oh, my God. Oh, shit.
Hi, everyone. This is Video Section, and I am Josh. This is Steven, and you do not have to suck our dicks. But what you do have to do is listen to us discuss a classic movie from the VHS era. Steven, how's it going, buddy?
Pretty good, but I wouldn't say no to a beach right now. You know what I mean?
I hear you, man. Fuck yeah. Well, I figure that's a fair trade for the listeners, so.
Yeah, we review a movie that you may or may not care about, and you suck our dicks either way.
Yeah, either way, we win. So today we're going to be discussing The Blues Brothers from 1980. And if you had taken a look at our socials, at Video Section on Twitter and Instagram, you would know that. But going forward, you can do that just to kind of play along. Released in 1980, directed by John Landis, who made one of my favorite movies, An American Werewolf in London, and also Ghostbusters. And directed Michael Jackson's Thriller.
Hey, yo.
Yeah, absolutely. It was written by Dan Aykroyd and John Landis. Cinematography by Stephen M. Katz, which I found a lot of movies that he had worked on that I had never heard of. But he did work on Kentucky Fried Movie with John Landis. The main cast includes Dan Aykroyd, John Belushi, and a ton of talented musicians who couldn't act their way out of a wet paper sack.
Got that right.
It's really, really bad. Really, really bad. And the soundtrack was really, at the time, a who's who of R&B royalty. I mean, you had Ray Charles, you had Aretha Franklin, you had James Brown. I mean, they got everybody in this fucking thing, man. It was really crazy, the cast that they put together, for good and bad.
Yeah, no doubt. And I think it's time for a spoiler alert.
Yes, sir.
All right, everybody. Any discussion beyond this point can and probably will contain movie-ruining spoilers. Duh. You are listening to a movie review podcast. Do not piss and moan that we ruined the movie for you. You had plenty of time if you were checking our IG to go watch it. Basically, whatever we talk about from here, we're going to just kind of operate under the assumption that we've all seen it.
Yes, we are.
If you haven't seen it and you want to pause this episode and come back and pick it up after you've seen it, at the taping of this episode, it is streaming on a few different providers. I think the vast majority, none of which are for free. It's for rent only. $4 on Prime, I think, is what Josh had to pay.
Yeah, unfortunately, there was no freebie on this.
There is a fairly recent Blu-ray release. I think it was updated to 4K UHD, DVD, of course, Laserdisc, and, of course, VHS, if you can find it.
VHS. So to lay a little groundwork for when this movie was released, some of the things going on at the time, some major events around the world. I think the biggest one that we could reference, especially with this being a musically based movie, was the assassination of John Lennon, who was gunned down in front of his home at the Dakota Building in New York City. And Stephen, I wanted to ask you, is that the most significant musician's death ever, do you think?
Death? No. For me personally, no.
Would that be Elvis?
No. No.
Maybe murder. Maybe homicide.
Yeah,
like
absolutely. In terms of assassination, oh yeah, that's number one. Probably.
Yeah.
Probably number one.
I can't think of any other musicians that were assassinated.
Yeah, bizarre. Rest in peace, man.
So also, I wanted to go over a little bit of the public perception of the movie at the time. We like to do that every episode to kind of see where it was and where it's come. Feel like the movie was fairly well received. It did have a background of a Saturday Night Live sketch that had gained a little popularity. So there are definitely a lot of people excited about this when it came out. The movie grossed $57 million domestically, which is okay, I guess, not too bad. But the soundtrack was successful on its own and spawned a concert tour to promote the film later that year. So all in all, it was a bit lukewarm, but it made its money.
Which parallels my opinion of the movie.
Yeah, we'll definitely get into that.
Yeah, I don't want to spoil that, but...
Exactly. So, and I feel like the critics' perception at the time, from what I can read, it was a bit mixed. There was definitely situations where critics had cited the lack of plot. I think is definitely there. That's a valid point. It feels like that the direction was a bit off, and I mean, this movie, you want to talk about car chases, car crashes. That is the fucking bulk of this thing.
Oh,
I mean,
God.
it's absurd the amount of car chase scenes in this movie. And I know at one time they had held the record for most cars crashed in a movie. I think it was something like 110, something ridiculous.
I believe it.
It feels like 70% of the goddamn movie. It did have a few proponents. I know that our brother Raj, he felt like the movie had charm and unlikely grace at times. That was a quote. I don't really see that, but again.
That fucking blows my mind, man. Was he paid to say that? Because that's retarded.
Yeah, possibly, man, because I can't think of any other reason that he would have gotten any enjoyment out of this film.
I had this thought right now. Where is Roger Ebert from?
The Chicago Times.
Well, there you go.
Hey, you know what? I did not put that together.
Yeah, he's from the Chicago area and born and raised.
Yes, sir. That's got to be it.
If you're not from Chicago and you don't like SNL, you're probably not going to like this movie.
I mean, I can't say that I followed either one of those categories. Maybe that was the problem.
I'm just grasping at straws because Roger Ebert is usually a pretty good source. And
yeah, he's pretty astute.
Yeah, he's way off. Just wrong. Absolutely wrong about this one.
I agree with you there. And interestingly enough, there was a huge bidding war for this movie, and Universal Studios narrowly beat out Paramount Pictures for the project. The film had problems for the start, however. Aykroyd had never written a screenplay before, and he was unable to find a writing partner. His final draft was 324 fucking pages, which was 3 times longer than a standard screenplay. Belushi's drug and alcohol problems would grind production to a halt frequently, and from everything that I can read, the film was constantly running over the budget. Maybe something to...
Cocaine?
Yeah, cocaine, maybe the 5,000 fucking cars that they crashed. Yeah, this thing seems like it was off the rails from the beginning.
So what you're saying is that from the get-go, nobody knew what they were doing except John Landis.
Yes, it does seem like he saved this fucking movie and made it actually able to be made. I mean, I just can't believe that you would write a 324-page script. I mean, I know you don't know what you're doing, but good fucking God, he's acted before. He had been in films before. He's read scripts. You know, I don't I don't know. And maybe he just couldn't stop himself. This was his baby, obviously. This was Aykroyd's dream to do this. So it was a huge advantage to bring Landis in. He kind of cut it down and made it into something, I almost said watchable, but I guess that's debatable.
Aykroyd should have just left it a novel and been done.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it just seems like he wanted to find all of his favorite musicians and make a movie with them.
I think that's exactly what he was going for, and he paid no thought to if they could fucking act or not.
Oh my God, no. And we can get into that a little bit more. I mean, the acting from the musicians is painful. So painful.
Yeah. What were some other movies of 1980, man? That's 10 years before my time.
Yeah, and that's of my time. I was a 1-year-old little baby, but I do remember every one of these next few films I will mention with fondness, starting with The Empire Strikes Back.
Heyo, classic.
Which is still, hands down, out of the 500 fucking Star Wars movie they've made, the best. My favorite, anyway. And also that year, and I didn't even realize this was the year it came out, Airplane, which, depending on your taste, I guess. I love Airplane. I think it's fucking hilarious. Also, Stir Crazy. I mean, 9 to 5. There are actually a lot of good comedies that came out that year. I can't say that The Blues Brothers was one of them.
Well, I only know one of those movies, so that gives you some perspective on where I'm coming from.
I'm guessing Empire?
Yeah, which we can agree is probably objectively the best, in my opinion, Star Wars movie.
Oh, for sure.
Subjectively, not my favorite, though.
Really?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Oh, okay. Everybody's got their own opinion. So no problems there.
That's why I say subjectively, because I know that the movie that is my favorite sucks.
What, do you love the fucking Ewoks, man? Is that what you're going to tell me?
No, man. I love episode 1.
Oh, my God, dude. Really?
I was like 10 when that movie came out, and I watched it 40 times, man. It's a terrible movie. It's a terrible movie. I understand.
I guess with context, that makes sense. That fucking Jar Jar Binks ruined Star Wars.
Oh, God.
It's disgusting.
It's hard to watch now. I loved it when I was a kid, okay? That's pretty much where I'm coming from with that.
Yeah, that's true. I got to remember that you're significantly younger than me, so there's going to be a lot of things that we kind of we meet at different points on.
Yeah, I'm going to be clarifying along the way, objective versus subjective.
I think that's good. We're going to need that for sure.
Or else I'm going to get fucking strung up on this show.
Yeah, and me too. Look, I'm going to be married to several movies as we go forward that you're going to think are stupid. You're going to hate them, but for whatever reason, maybe I was 9 years old and we had the VHS at the house and I watched it 800 million fucking times, and you can't help but come away with a bit of fondness. Even if you go back, like you say, and realize that this movie's dog shit, doesn't mean you can't like it.
It's a free country, bitch. I'll like whatever I want.
Goddamn right, or you can suck our dicks.
Roll Tide.
Fuck yeah, Roll Tide.
All right. Shall we actually start talking about the movie now?
I think that may be good.
Okay, let me first ask you, yes or no, have you seen this movie before preparation for the show?
Yeah, and I think I realized that I had seen it in bits and pieces. I don't think I've ever sat down and watched this movie all the way through. I actually think that I watched a good bit of this movie with your dad one time when I was like 10 or 11. And have we mentioned that we're cousins yet on this? Because I feel like that last statement may need a little context. Like, I was just snuggled up with your dad on the couch watching a movie. Like, even if we were good friends, that would be weird. But no, we're family, so that's not weird. But yeah, I think that was actually maybe at 10 or 11 the biggest chunk of this movie I'd seen previously. Wasn't crazy about it. I know with the amount of great blues musicians in it that I know, your pops was really down with it, and he was trying to point out, oh, that's so-and-so, he's the best studio guitarist there ever was, and all this, and So even with that context laid in it, watching it at the time, I still could never get into it.
Same. I watched it because I was in marching band. I was one of those nerds.
Fucking dork.
Yeah, and we did a Blues Brothers show my first year in marching band.
Oh.
And of course I watched the movie. I didn't really like it, didn't really understand it, but I was in marching band and everybody thought it was cool, so I thought it was cool, and here we are. Hadn't really seen it since because it sucks. I mean, because I haven't. Okay, but if you haven't seen the movie, listeners out there, let me give you a very terrible and basic plot summary. After Jake's stint in the pokey, he and his brother Elwood have to come up with $5,000 for the orphanage that raised them. Okay, they grew up in a Catholic orphanage. Their plan was to put on the biggest and bestest show they've ever done. And for you millennials out there, most lit. This thing was going to be the most lit ever.
Oh, shit. Thanks for translating.
Yeah. Well, they realized it was just two dudes. They didn't have a band, so they have to go on a quest to put the band back together, man.
We're putting the band back together.
And along the way, they get into some crazy shenanigans.
Yeah, that's an understatement.
Lots of car chases. The army is involved. There's a few Nazis. Eventually, they do end up getting the money to save the orphanage, narrowly. They got a record deal. They put on their big show, which was a hit. And they also got put in fucking prison. And the last shot of the show is we see them in the band. They are now the jail band.
Yeah, and I want a record contract like that. Here's $10,000 in cash. Okay.
Yeah, right now in advance.
Yeah, I don't have to sign anything. All right, cool, I'm in.
Yeah, which in 1980 was a shitload of money.
Yeah, and watching this, I really had to think about that. I'm like, $5,000, really? Like, what? They're having to travel all over the state of fucking Illinois to collect people to do a show just to get $5,000. But then you think, 1980, $5,000. I didn't look up the inflation, but I guess that would be a little more difficult to come up with back then.
1980.
Okay.
An item purchased for $5,000 would be $15,771.
Wow. So 3 times. Yeah, that's a lot. And I guess if you're fresh out of jail, and also too, the nun that they spoke with made it clear that they were not able to gain these funds unethically or illegally. So that definitely made it more difficult.
How did they end up in James Brown's church though?
That was Cab Calloway recommended that they go see the Reverend, and I forget his name.
That's right. And so they end up in church, and the music's playing, spirits moving. And I remember Jake doing a bunch of flips, and then he came back with this epiphany. He's like, I know what we have to do. We have to put the band back together and put on a big show. And that's where they we're on a mission from God.
Oh, and they remind you of that many, many times. That line is said. I didn't count it, but it was a bit ridiculous.
And just for the record, when me and my wife were watching this movie, I put a bet that they were going to say it 5 times total. She bet they were going to say it 7 times total, so I win.
So it was 5?
It was 4. I was closest.
Oh, okay. All right. So this was not Price is Right rules. All right. Yeah, it was excessive either way. But I want to know what, like, as far as just story, just the basic plot, how do you feel? Because we're going to get into all the things we hate about this film. As far as the basic plot, how do you feel this movie did?
I actually like the story. I think the story is not bad.
Yeah, I agree.
Kind of normal, but they had something with that.
Yeah, it wasn't crazy, and it was very of the time. That's a very 1980 plot. We've got to raise some money, so what can we do to raise the money and save the day? I think that was actually in a lot of movies back then.
A quest line. Quest story. I like it. I dig that.
Yeah, I didn't have a problem with that.
Now, where did it go wrong for you, though? Oh, wait. Where did it start to go wrong for you?
Yeah, pretty much. I'll be honest with you. The movie starts and he's getting released from jail. Jake's getting released from jail. I actually thought that it was shot pretty well. I didn't have a huge issue with even the few lines of comedy they threw in. I thought it was okay. It was fine. I feel like, to me, as soon as he walks out of the jail and gets into the car with Elwood, that's when the movie goes off the fucking rails.
Okay, fair enough. But I'm going to disagree. I'm going to say
Okay.
the whole sequence in the prison is a good summary of everything I hate about this movie. Because the bits in general, the comedy is mostly situational, and the bits take way too long. He gets out of the jail cell, and him and the guards are walking in step the whole way, which is kind of funny for a little bit, like, oh, haha. But we go through 3 different buildings, and they're still walking in step. They're like hammering this bit into the fucking ground. For like 5 minutes, we see them walking in step. Which is ridiculous, but it was kind of funny for like 30 seconds. And then afterwards, I'm sitting here thinking, holy shit, this is not funny anymore. This is stupid. And that could be said about nearly every bit.
I was just going to say that pretty much encompasses every bit in the movie. It's like they thought they had a good idea, so let's run it out for 5 fucking minutes.
Yeah, you beat a dead horse. Over.
It was. And actually,
Over.
when they went to go see The Nun, we had our first little instance, and I actually had a note that just said, oh no, slapstick. I thought this movie was going to be, because he falls out of the desk, fat guy stuck in a desk, falls down the stairs, the desk shatters. I was like, oh wow, is this what this is going to be for the next 2 fucking hours? Fortunately, there wasn't a ton of that, but yeah, it was everything seemed like, I don't even know if it was well conceived, but it was poorly executed.
Yeah, absolutely. I wish there was a little bit more slapstick, man. That when they scooted the desk across the office, the nun's office in that same scene, I thought that was kind of funny because it was really quick and it was situational.
Yeah.
They didn't like scoot their desk across a gymnasium. That would have gotten old.
Yeah, but I think that, if they were going to do that was fine throwing it in at that first section. My problem with slapstick is after the first time you do it, it is no longer funny. Whether it be a scene, whether it be even just in general, when you become known as a slapstick comedian, the only thing that's funny about slapstick is that you don't see it coming. You don't see the fall down the stairs. You don't see, the fucking getting hit by the bus or whatever the fuck it is, And once you expect it, to me, it's just not funny anymore.
Yeah, diminishing returns is what I'm hearing here.
Yeah, exactly.
Can I ask you a question?
Yes, you can.
A lot of that must have been written into the screenplay or into the script. The director, I think, Landis, did the best he could, but it still sucked. I mean, his direction sucked. I think he was working with dog shit.
I feel like that was probably the case. Probably the case. I mean, when you have to chop something up that much, when you have to cut essentially a third out, I mean, then you're just piecing scraps together, and I don't.
What do you mean?
Well, essentially, he was handed Dan Aykroyd's script, and they told Landis to make this an actual fucking script. And it was so incredibly long that to get it down to the actual running time of a film at the time, he had to chop the shit out of it, dude. I mean, there was, like I said, there was like 324 fucking pages in the script, So it definitely was a big steaming pile of shit that he had to somehow chop up, create a film that they could actually put. And then also too, you're trying to throw in musical sequences, musical numbers, and you're trying to make a cohesive story out of that. It seems honestly, it was probably an impossible task.
Oh, definitely. This should have just been a musical, period.
Yeah, and I agree, but I would probably hate it even more because I fucking hate musicals. I cannot abide a fucking musical, man. I do not fucking sing it. Just say it. Like, I don't understand. It's the most off-putting. It takes me out so hard. Like, I just don't understand why anybody enjoys that. But again, that's just my opinion, and I'm sticking to it.
You are uncultured swine, aren't you?
Absolutely, man. I'm fucking Georgia trash. Goddamn right, boy.
You goddamn right, son. Hell.
Don't need up fucking pretty boys up there singing. What the fuck? I mean, there's no doubt. There's something to that. Look, people love them, man. People love them. I've never been able to sit through one.
I can't name one off the top of my head that I really enjoy. But look, he went even further. Not only did he have a terrible screenplay to start with, he gave musicians a lot of dialogue.
Yeah.
What was he thinking?
The speaking roles from the musicians in this. And honestly, I think the only thing that worked in this movie with a musician would probably have been James Brown, because, I mean, come on. A black revival preacher, that's James Brown anyway. He didn't really have to speak. He sang all his lines. And I thought that was great. I think Ray Charles, his acting was passable, but the musical number was actually kind of nice. Beyond that, the Aretha Franklin musical number, I mean, the lip syncing was god awful. I don't know if you noticed
Terrible.
how unsynced her lips were with the music. It was really, really rough. And then any of the speaking lines were rough. Although I will say, one musician I thought actually did a halfway decent job on his speaking lines. I want to see if you can guess who you think that is.
I'm going to tell you who I think it is, and if it's the same,
Okay.
that'd be great. Cab Calloway.
Cab Calloway, I thought, did really well as well.
Well, who did you have in mind?
That's not who I was thinking of. I thought one of the guys that did one of the best jobs was actually the I forget his name, the trumpet player, who they had to go.
Oh, yeah.
He was working as a maitre d',
Yeah.
maitre d', and they had to go convince him to come back in. I actually thought his lines that he did in the movie were not terrible. Not good, but not terrible.
Yeah, he actually didn't strike me as a musician. I actually thought he was an actor. So that's really cool. But for me, the best was Cab Calloway. I really enjoyed everything with Cab Calloway in it, and his musical number was fucking captivating.
Yeah, it really was. I mean, and that's not necessarily my jam, the old school big band, but it was really cool. The way they did it was cool, and I thought it sounded great too.
It tripped me out, man. I'm not even gonna lie.
Yeah, I wasn't expecting that when the curtain came up.
Yeah. Speaking of the music, by and large, killer music in this movie.
I agree. And if you're
It should have just been a musical.
Yes, if you're a big rhythm and blues, like an old school rhythm and blues fan, I can see where that would endear this film to you. You know, or maybe if you were a huge SNL fan at the time and really enjoyed both Aykroyd and Belushi and that skit in particular, I can see. And I really feel like this movie is one of those you had to be theirs. I feel like if you were 12 to 20 when this movie, you probably loved this fucking movie.
Yeah, can we stop right there? Because I need to go ahead and air some dirty laundry.
Go ahead.
I have never in my life enjoyed SNL at all. Not any of them, not any of the cast of SNL. And I've given it a God's honest try to enjoy it. I just don't get it. Everything about SNL is everything that I don't like about this movie. And I just think, for the most part, the bits are lazy. The acting is terrible. And I guess I'm asked to suspend just a little bit more reality than I'm willing to give. And a lot of the bits on SNL are kind of like this movie. They hit them too hard. They drive them into the ground. And I just can't take that train ride with them. So let me ask you this question. Do you have to like SNL to like this movie?
Well, I think the inherent problem is that most of these Saturday Night Live based movies run into is that in sketch shows, not just Saturday Night Live, any sketch show, period, and I think most people would agree, you're going to hit real hard on about 30% of the skits, and about 70% of it is meh at best. So when you take an entire film and base it around a sketch in that kind of format, I think you're going to run into the same problem. You're going to have the couple of bits here and there that work, but you're going to have, by and large, you're really going to miss the mark. And that's obviously the case in this movie. I mean, you're going to have people that just wax poetic about how amazing this movie is, and there's nothing you can do about it. I think that we're coming at it with fresh eyes, and we can see the god-awful bullshit contained within this movie. But sorry, that was a long-winded answer to I don't think you have to, but I think it definitely helps if you are a fan of sketch comedy or this sketch in particular.
Boo.
Yeah, look, man, I like Saturday Night Live, or I used to. I haven't watched it in years. You know, I came up in the Dana Carvey, Phil Hartman era. That's my shit. That's my shit I can go back and still laugh at.
Well, fair enough, and no disrespect to people that do. I just think that's poopy.
Yeah, sketch comedy is not for everybody.
Prerequisite material for most entertainment is bullshit. If you have to play every game in the series before you can play Resident Evil 5 or Mario Kart 64, fuck that. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I can get on board with that.
Like, it should also hold well enough on its own. And I'm sure there are people out there that think that this movie does hold well enough on its own. You may not have to have seen the material from the sketch to follow the story, but I really think that you have to be in that family of Saturday Night Live lovers to love this movie. And I'm just not cool with that.
Yeah, it seems that way, certainly. And honestly, I don't think I've ever actually, at least I don't remember actually seeing the sketches.
Oh well. now that we're airing dirty laundry, tell me something else you hate about this movie, man.
Well, personally for me, I think one thing that can really take you out, especially in an older movie, and there are several I could reference here, but for me, sound is a big problem. If you don't have good sound in your movie, unless it's a silent film, I don't know. Like, it's the basis for it. I mean, you basically have two parts. You have the visual and you have the sound. If one of them sucks, it's not going to be a good movie. And the sound was really bad in this. I mean, literally Bugs Bunny, Looney Tune-esque gunshots. You know, pew, 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 pew.
Yeah, terrible.
I mean, it was really hard to listen to, and the amount of car chases and car crashes, it's such a big part of this movie, and all of the tire screeching, the impacts, it all really sounds like they pulled it out of a folder with about 5 different sounds. It was really rough. I think that was actually one of the things that bothered me the most about this movie.
Oh, absolutely, man. All of the ADR, which for people out there, automated dialogue replacement, that's where they didn't capture something while they were filming it well enough, and so they overdubbed it. Overdubbing is a better way to say that. It's a less technical term. All the overdubbing was terrible. Foley, which is where, you know, there's just some dude in a studio tapping out with his hands, horse hoof prints and, like, you know, footprints and people going upstairs. Thunder, yeah. All the Foley was, I mean, the Foley was fairly okay, if I'm being honest with you. But the mixing and the mastering, the way they captured the sound from a sonic perspective was terrible. And I don't know if it's because they were trying to make it comical or if it was completely unironic and they were just using really shitty gear. I don't know. It just sounds like shit.
Yeah, I feel like there's a good possibility this movie ran so far over budget that there were going to be aspects of it that had to pay the price.
Well, in a movie with music,
Yeah.
The one thing that they that they didn't concentrate on was the sound.
Yeah, and as far as all the musical productions, I mean, it was fine, but I think, a good majority of that came off the fucking album that they had already recorded for this. So,
Oh, the music sounded great.
yeah.
Some of
so
the best brass bands I've ever heard.
And I felt like they probably felt like they could lean on that pretty heavily.
Guess what? They couldn't.
No. This movie's a rough watch. And there was actually, I did watch this on Amazon. I had to spend $4 to rent it.
Boo.
There was actually an extended, like, director's cut version with an extra 25 minutes, advertised another 25 side-splitting minutes. I was like, no, fuck no.
My God.
Yeah, it went from like 2 hours to 227.
Yeah, it was already too long. Holy shit, dude.
Yeah, I don't know what else you could put in there that would make it better.
Yeah, you should take shit out. You shouldn't be
Yeah.
putting more in.
I want to see the cut version
Yeah.
where it's about an hour and 5 fucking minutes.
Yeah, man, absolutely.
Just all the musical numbers, and then we're out.
Well, I like to ask this question for most of these movies. Are there any deal breakers in here? Like absolute, as if we haven't shit on this movie enough. Absolute deal breakers.
Going back in time, considering kind of where we're at right now in our current climate, there's going to definitely be problematic things we run into. The only thing I can really think of in this would be maybe the comedic portrayal of Nazis. I don't know that it's that huge of a deal. I will say that it didn't really work in the movie. I didn't find anything funny about it. But maybe you could go back and nitpick and have an issue with that. I don't know.
Yeah, maybe. I don't know.
Oh, I wanted to mention, too, another thing that I felt was really upsetting was, you have Carrie Fisher in this movie, and she literally pops in and out with no speaking parts until the very end of the movie. And I'm a big Carrie Fisher fan. Grew up a Star Wars kid. Not to mention being completely muted through most of the movie, but her character was fucking stupid, man. It didn't make any sense to me. Like, essentially, and I guess it kind of lent towards some of the bits. She shoots a fucking rocket launcher and blows up their apartment building, and they just kind of get up out of the wreckage and dust themselves off like, oh, we got a meeting, which didn't work. But I didn't really enjoy that at all. I feel like if you're going to get an actress of that level, I mean, at least let her fucking talk.
Her character was retarded, and all of her bits sucked.
Yeah, they weren't good. And all the acting lines you gave to fucking a trumpet player or a saxophone player that had never acted in their life, and we can't hear anything out of Carrie Fisher. It makes no sense.
Well, there's the movie summarized.
Yeah, it makes no sense.
Speaking of...
So with all of that having been said, that brings us to...
Does this shit hold up?
Does this movie stand the test of time? And I will ask you, Steven, even though I know the answer.
Fuck no. This movie sucks.
Yeah.
What about you?
No, it does not. But I will say, I don't think I have as much hatred for this movie as you do. And it's not that I enjoyed the film, but I think part of that is generational. To me, I grew up watching movies in the 80s that were very similar to this, at least as far as pacing, content. So I think it's a formula I'm a little more used to having seen than you, but it still was done really badly. This movie does not hold up whatsoever, and I think you could probably dig out another 10 or 20 movies from this year that have a much better chance of retaining any value than this.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think I really even need to ask you if you would recommend this movie, but I'm going to do it anyway. Steven, would you recommend this movie?
No, I would not. It was an absolute chore for me to get through.
Yeah, I got to admit, I was really dreading it leading up to it. It was not something I looked forward to. It's not something I would want to inflict on anyone else. If you didn't grow up loving this movie, you're going to fucking hate it.
Yeah, don't watch it. Just go watch something else.
Watch anything else. Anything else. Literally anything else. Well, I think that about wraps it up for this week. We've said all we can say. We've shit as much as we can possibly shit on this movie. If you want to stop by, go check us out on Instagram and Twitter at Video Section. You can find us on both platforms. Take a look at what we have coming up next week there. And also drop a comment, discuss maybe what you thought about the show for this episode, and maybe just what you think about the movie in general. We want to start a dialogue. We want to hear what you guys have to say. All right, everybody, we'll see you next week. For Steven, I'm Josh. Thank you for listening to Video Section.